Welcome, guys, to
Yeah,
another
I'm
episode
ready.
of The Candy Show. I'm your host, Candy. We are back. This is 2023. Yes, let's everybody give it up, give it up, give it up. Yes, 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 yes. All righty, we have a returning guest. But first, let's do some house cleaning rules here. Number one, make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube page. That is capital C, Candy Productions 2. Number two at the end, that is YouTube page capital C, Candy Productions 2 at the end. Now, if you are not following this Instagram page, make sure you follow that. Make sure you put your notifications on, and that's the Candy Talk Show on Instagram. And guess what? There is a website. That's www.candyproductions2.biz. So, guys, without further ado, I want to welcome my returning guest, musical artist, Mr. Adam. Woo! What's
What's
going
going on,
on, Adam?
buddy?
Okay, let's talk a little bit about this. Now, you're a returning guest. Last time you were on the Candy Show, you were on your way to the
Yes.
airport, and fast forward, and I heard you got some good news to tell us, but talk a little bit about, we're going to go back. What happened at that meeting that you were supposed to go to that one time?
Well, as far as when I was going to Texarkana, just kind of get raw and unscripted here. Unfortunately, things didn't necessarily go as they should have gone. People just not taking it very seriously, and just people just going at it back and forth with inconsistencies and just not caring. And I just think that when you're an artist and you're going to be going up there and people promise things are going to happen when you go up to where you're supposed to go, and then they make excuses, and then you have to end up pulling money from your own pocket to do things. Big shout outs to Melvin, he's up in here. But just you have to learn when you have to cut some people out, that don't take the business very seriously. So that meeting didn't end up coming through, but God has bigger plans for me. So something that didn't happen right, ends up happening for me later down the line. So that,
Yes. You,
it is what it is.
you know how they
But
say when
move
one
forward.
door closes, another one opens, right? Well, tell everyone, where are
Yeah,
you actually located right now? What city and state are you coming from today?
right. So from coming from today, I am currently in the DMV area. So specifically, Virginia. So East Coast vibes, a lot of what I would say most of the greats are from this area. Obviously Chris Brown and stuff like that, and Johnny Gill and things like that. So, East Coast represents anytime we can,
Okay, come on now.
but
Virginia's in the
Virginia.
house. Virginia's in the house. And welcome, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We have musical artist here, Adam, and we're about to get into the real nitty gritty because once again, you were on the Candy Show before. You had, matter of fact, you didn't have a song out at that time, did you? No, because this one came
Um,
afterwards.
I mean, obviously, I had some stuff floating around, with the video and things like that. But I was still new at the time, and I was still kind of learning the business and learning different things. But now, no,
Okay.
now we're with the big guns now. So yeah, now we have records that are actually feeling like my personal opinion, some of my best work I've ever done. So
And
yes,
now we
I guess you could say
introduced you
now.
last time as R&B Adam. So has that changed? Tell me what has happened since the last time I spoke to you.
So, I found that, when it came to R&B, it didn't really reach the heights that I was hoping for. However, R&B is still the core of what I do and what I am, but I have transitioned to being more a Latin artist. Me being Hispanic and Middle Eastern, I wanted to tap into my Hispanic roots. So, as you've already heard, I do my recent release called Esta Noche, released under Edmund's Music Group was a bachata record that I did in English first, but then I sung it in Spanish, which has done remarkable things for me. I haven't gone on tour yet with it, but I've been showcasing it around, DMV area and things. So yes, I do Latin music now. And just to put this in perspective, I am not a native speaker, even though I am Hispanic. But I did learn at a very quick rate with my engineer and producer
That
Joshua
is actually
Rodriguez,
what I
who's from
wanted to touch on, because
Colombia.
I remember last time when I spoke to you, you didn't know how to speak a lot of Spanish or
Right.
anything else. So tell us a little bit about that, because what also people don't know, you released a different version. So talk to us about that process first before we go into Esta Noche.
Well, sure. So originally, basically I kind of had the idea, for the last 6 months, and then it had happened. Basically, Romeo Santos, big bachata artist, overseas and stuff like that. Basically, he had done a record with Justin Timberlake, and I had been wanting to do, a bachata related record and things like that. And he sung, Usher and Justin Timberlake have both collaborated with Romeo Santos in the past, and they sung in English. And I was like, well, no one really does bachata music in English. But then when I released it in English, everybody kept asking. It was doing decently well considering the beat and everything. I really had a good time performing in English for a little bit. But then shortly after, not even less than 2 weeks, everybody's like, "We want it in Spanish, one year, one in Spanish, Spanish this and Spanish that." And I put my foot down and I called Josh and said, "Hey, I'm not a native Spanish speaker, but I really need to do this in Spanish." And he said, "No problem, Adam. I got you." And he said, "It's not hard, but we'll go through it step by step." And once he did that, just doing it over and over, just like riding a bike, you learn how to sing in another language. It's actually not as hard. But maybe because I am also Hispanic and had the willingness to learn, that probably is why it came a lot more naturally to me than a lot of other,
Now, you said
let's
it's
just say other people.
bachata. How do you pronounce that?
Bachata. It's funny because spell it. It's Bachata, and for people who don't know, bachata's origins are in the DR, which is Dominican Republic. And so people who aren't really familiar with bachata, it's more like, I would say the closest thing would be more like salsa. You know what I mean? Very similar styles if you heard anything from Mark Anthony. But if you're more familiar, bachata is like, if you listen to Prince Royce, he's very popular. And if you listen to some of his records where he sings in both English and Spanish, bachata uses a lot of like Latin music in general uses a lot of like guitars and drums and bongos, like more like the organic roots of what actual music is. But yes, it's kind of similar to
Now, I
salsa in a
did
lot of
have a
ways.
chance to let someone listen to your music, and they did mention that bachata has a different, like a tone to it, have different levels when it comes. There's a fast, there's a slow, there's a mid tempo. Tell me about how do you categorize your song, Esta Noche?
Yeah, so with Esta Noche, I categorize it as something I've always wanted, but it's basically very up tempo. Something that when you go to a party, most of the time you want to be dancing. You know what I mean? Just as for more in depth with you being Candy Girl, LaBelle Biv DeVoe, Ricky Bell had always said he wanted a song being played in the clubs. You know what I mean? With Poison, when they did Poison and Do Me and all those records, it's kind of the way I felt about it. You know what I mean? It's up tempo, high energy type of music that you can get up and dance to that will forever be something that
Now,
can
do
be played at
you
any
know how to
party.
dance? We talked about that last time. You did some back in the day. You did some Michael Jackson
Yeah,
impersonating. So
I've done a lot of work as of recently picking up different bachata steps, and whenever I perform, from the basic, obviously with the moving of the arms with the 3 step to more advanced steps, it's like a 1, 1, 2, 3, and just different things to make my performances more live. Of course, as a dancer, you don't need to be dancing the whole time, but the element of where if when you people your listeners listen to the song, there's mid sections in there where you can find the dancing segment. So yes, for this, I did it to where I feel comfortable enough to perform my record. At least for the steps are easy for newbies who don't really have a lot of rhythm to pick up, but for and complex elements to where people who know how to dance bachata can do even more. It's very sensual. So a lot of the steps is moving your hips. Don't be so stiff.
now
Move your
you
hips.
also have some good news to share. You mentioned it earlier. You gave someone a shout out. So during the process from the last time we spoke on the Candy Show, not only did you learn some Spanish in order to put your new
Yeah.
song out and put it in the Spanish version, but you also have some great news to share with everyone about signing, or tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. So crazy enough, is, you know, I just kind of want to
Go ahead.
backpedal first before I get into that. So obviously, most people don't know, but when I started learning to sing, my vocal coach got me. I mean, I always knew about him, but my vocal coach got me into singing babyface music. And, you know, obviously, he was, you know, after hearing my voice for a little bit, they felt my voice was very similar to his style, which obviously, you know, just kind of fast forwarding, I sung at a wedding doing babyface covers. I did babyface covers on and off and things like that. But, you know, obviously, you know, people always will say the John B thing, which obviously he was inspired by Babyface as well, being one of his biggest influences. Basically, throughout this journey, you know, I was very fortunate based on a very interesting interaction on Facebook. I met the wonderful Melvin Edmonds Jr., who is the son of the late great Melvin Edmonds Sr. from After Seven, and I met him on Facebook because I knew that it's crazy to say I knew one of them had passed away, you know, obviously, but I didn't realize it. I forgot it was, you know, Melvin, and when I hit him up, I thought it was his, you know, I thought it was his dad. And then we were interacting online, and, you know, just long story short, I sent my music. You know, he sent me as artists, and they were asking me some questions, and they really liked my vocals. And what really nailed it for them is when I sung in Spanish. You know what I mean? I sung 2 lines of Esta Noche in Spanish, and they were blown away. And they offered me, you know, a management deal, and you know, that for me was a full circle moment because for me, you know, not everybody gets an opportunity, just like John B. Not everybody gets an opportunity to work with people that have influenced them or inspired them, or people that have given you the opportunity, you know what I mean, to be a part of something that I never thought was even possible. You know, even though it's not Babyface, I'm signed under the family of the people that I really admire that have formed my voice into what it is. So that's why it was such a big move for me. And I know it's, you know, on the outset, people are like, oh, it's not Babyface, so why does it matter? Well, it's the family. And being that their family, the level of connections that they have is something that I would never dream of. So that's why, for me,
Well,
it was a
I want to
big moment
say
for me.
congratulations
So it's
first and foremost. We have to definitely give you some claps on that. Congratulations. Now, you know, they are from Indianapolis, Indiana, you know, which is where the candy show is based out of.
yeah. Well, right now they're actually in
Okay.
Atlanta.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about that. So tell us a little bit about the label name. Where are they based out of? Because while I'm saying
Right.
that,
Well,
meaning After Seven and Babyface, they're from originally from Indianapolis, Indiana. But tell us a little bit about the company.
well, so with Edmonds music, it's so interesting because obviously I'm still new to the whole, you know, system with Edmonds music. So obviously, you know, Melvin and all of them, I believe, because I don't want to say get this wrong because Melvin's actually in the chat right now, which is great. I think, you know, because they were After Seven obviously was doing big things in LA. You know, obviously they went over there with Babyface, so obviously everybody lives in LA for a short period of time. For a period of time, especially when they were doing the big things in the late '80s and early '90s. You know, even up to the mid '90s, I believe. And then right now, just to kind of fast forward, so I don't get the timeline right now. Currently, they're in Atlanta, Georgia. But as far as the label themselves and everything they're doing, they basically they are independent, but on a major level. You know what I mean? Not dealing with all the middleman BS. And basically because of who he is and everything he's done, you know, with his, you know, father and throughout the years and experience that he has, you know, he has access to everything that we would need, you know, for me to be as an artist be successful. So it's like without someone like, Melvin Edmonds and his wonderful wife Brianna Edmonds, you know, doing this, it just gives me easy access to things I would never by myself. Like if I were to try to, let's just say a perfect example, if I were to try to book myself for like, say Soul Train Awards or something, or Latin Music Awards, I couldn't do that just because I'm, you know, independent. But now that I'm with them, it's like boom, it's like Adam, you want this? Let's work it out. And they can get me situations with my song to get in bigger radio stations and different opportunities that people otherwise, just because you're independent and you're a nobody, they wouldn't pay attention to you. But they're pretty much the machine that I needed to get my music to go. And they're basically, you know, a management deal. Mine was a, you know, management team. My team, I call them family. It's not really a team, it's family. So they basically book me shows and, you know, have the connections to potentially get me big features with maybe other artists that I would never have normal access to. And, you know, the typical, let's just say an example, right? Let's just say, random example, like, I don't know, trying to find, so let's just say there's a big artist, like, you know, that you might know of, and they would charge this amount of money. They could get me a situation where I wouldn't have to pay anything. I just pay, Adam, we'll get you over here. You just need to record, do your job, and boom, we're done. Like, that's the access, this power that this great label has. And I'm saying this with all honesty. They've done, as far as what you've seen with the numbers of my growth, that's what the label has done for me. And I always tell people, I still believe labels are key, are king. It's just the ones that when people, specifically with this label, they're no nonsense, get things done. And that's why I like them. And they're not, you know, they're very much allowing you to be very creative with being hands
Well, let's
on
talk a
with
little bit
everything that
about
you
the
do.
Esta Noche. Now, I want to make sure that I have it correct. Esta Noche?
So put ES. A lot of people don't speak Spanish. Trust me, even I know I'm not a native speaker. I still have issues myself with when I say certain things, how I say it. So it's esta, ESTA, da, like it's like da, noche,
Esta,
which is means night.
Esta Noche.
Like you have to kind of like
Esta,
like almost like
Esta.
like it's different dialects. You know?
Okay, I'm going
Esta,
to learn it. I'm going to learn it. Now, since you have a Spanish version and you have an English
yes,
version, which do you like to sing
right.
better?
The Spanish
Tell us a
version,
little
hands
about
down.
the growth of this song and how many views and downloads have you gotten? Tell us about it. Celebrate it.
Man, what man? So it's very interesting. Okay, it's very hard to kind of pinpoint why, and the reason why. First off, I can give you an accurate estimate on YouTube. On YouTube alone, YouTube, okay, just YouTube, as in about 4 weeks, we hit 122K.
Yes.
4 weeks. Yes, and it actually was, you know, it was that, and on top of that, I don't even know the downloads because I can't specify that. Spotify, it's not as high as I'd like it to be, but you know, Spotify's a different animal, you know, and everything's different animal. We don't even count the Amazon, and we're not even counting the radio spins because it's climbing, and we'll get to that. You know, on Inda Mix Radio, which is thanks shout out to my label team helping me get that going. Is Inda Mix Radio, we're in the top 25. So we don't, and digital radio space when things are being spun and stuff. I don't really know what the actual numbers are. It's kind of funny how it works out. That's why YouTube is great because it has more access and it's being played on other radio stations. I have no idea. And it was played on La Mega Radio in New York City, and it's a big radio station. And when I called them, they had no idea who I was, even though they played it. So it's kind of like, as an artist, when these things happen, I have no idea who's playing it. I mean, a lot of people are, but it's one of those things. But as far as the numbers on YouTube, I know.
Well,
So
that
that's
is
kind of my
an
gauge.
amazing
So
accomplishment because look at where you were at first,
yeah,
barely getting the views, barely getting to
right.
300 views, and all of a sudden now you have this great song. By the way, I can't wait to start dancing a little bit more to it. But you have this amazing song that I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. You're welcome.
Thank you. It's it means a lot to me, Candy. Because trust me, I wasn't feeling that way like by like a
I'm
handful of
glad you
months
brought that
ago.
up because that was one of the things that I wanted to talk about because yes, it was a struggle and you were about to give up,
Yeah, I
but then
was.
something happened.
Yeah, yeah. And we'll get into that right now. So basically, you know, music is such an important thing for me, and you know, it basically saved my life in a lot of ways. You know, in the mental space and internally, music is such a powerful force. And when you're working and giving your all into something with somebody, and I'm not going to name names, but and then they just snatch everything away, and after 10 or 11 months of work, it really like makes you want to quit because you basically don't understand. Like you basically took what this all this hard work. all the money that was spent on the lyrics being written, everything. And you just feel like, oh, I don't like how you're doing something, so pull the rug from under you. And just basically what made me not want to quit. And let me just put this in perspective. I said to myself, this is my last ditch record. I'm giving everything I got, money, time, energy. And if it didn't go anywhere, that was it. I was going to quit. But I thank God that I prayed, and obviously the situation with the label happened, and obviously it was meant to be. And you know, I'll say this, Candy, too. There's a picture you've probably seen online about the diamond miner. He's like diming, he's going for diamonds. And I don't know if you've seen it, but maybe you have. This is an old guy, and he's been digging for the diamonds, and he finally is about to hit it, but then he quits. And that was basically me. But luckily, I'm glad I didn't. And I use that as like a mantra for myself. When I see that picture, I think of myself, because I'm like, man, that could have been me. I could have been Edmund's music. Could have been that like diamond I was about to miss, because and you know, like I said, when it comes to these things, offers on the table, management deals, and situations, everybody's not joking. It is not something that you look for if you'll find it. And even though I approached them, it was an off chance. It was not. I didn't even, honestly. Let me be honest. When I messaged him, I didn't expect to hear anything from him at all. And then when he messaged me, I guess it was just God. You know, it's almost this. It was funny. It was eerie, because they said they were looking for someone like me too. So that meant a lot to me. And you know, I'm kind of like, I would say like the little brother of the label. Whenever I call him. I do call him a few times, because I always have something. I always want them to be informed, and I always keep them in the loop. But yeah, basically, as far as the quitting part, yeah, that was my mom. Even you can even ask her. It was very much. I mean, I went back to school. Of course, I'm graduating, but before that, I like literally wanted to stop doing music all entirely. I was just so sick of all
And
the
see,
BS
that is the
and
reason why I
nonsense.
wanted to make sure that you share that story, because even myself, I get to the point where I just want to give up, or I want to stop, whatever it is I'm thinking about in that moment. And it's like, you know what? If I do stop, then it's going to be that chance, that off chance that I would have missed my blessing. So I wanted to make sure that you share that, because a lot of people think it's an overnight success, and it's not. Often more times you're going to be wanting to give up
Uh,
than you are wanting to keep going forward. Mhm.
Andy, I don't mean to interject, but let me tell you how it took me 10 years to get this. 10. That's one
Mm,
third of my
mm,
life. So yeah, and exactly, it won't stop you.
it's
You was if you
right.
stop, you won't be happy. Well, you know, unfortunately, as my mom likes to put it, you know, unfortunately, sometimes you have to look into where is a reality now. Fortunately, this happened, but in terms of this, like I said, it took me so long, and I'm glad I didn't stop. But at the end of the day, you know, when you're a man of my age, I'm going to be 30 years old, believe it or not. I know I look good, okay, but I'm going to be 30, okay? And you know, when you are with a beautiful woman that I want to get married to, and you want to take care of her, and music isn't paying bills, sometimes you have to sacrifice and say, hey, maybe this isn't meant to be. Maybe as God has other plans. Obviously, this is what God wants me to do. But I see myself, you know, in what I want to do in my life. I want to be able to do this so I can take care of everybody in my life. And I can, you know, and on the selfish note, I want to be able to just, if I want to go get Korean barbecue, I don't want to be, you know, I don't want to be chastised for worrying about bills. You know what I mean? I'll be like, look, I want to go out to this Mexican restaurant's Korean barbecue. Where are we gonna go today? Let's figure out a new place we can go. You know what I mean? Like, don't have to worry about those
Oh, trust me, I
bills.
truly
You know
already
what I
know
mean?
all about that. Instead of having to say how much is this, and you're like, that doesn't mean anything. Before we get
Yeah.
you out of here, because of a couple of things I want to make sure we do. Number one, if you can just sing a line or two, let everybody know that you're not coming. You're not gonna be
Oh,
stopping. You're coming for it all. So I want them to hear a little bit, just a couple of lines, because we want to make sure we save it so they can go and get your music downloaded and go to YouTube. So if you don't mind, can you just sing us a couple of lines, please?
do a couple lines of Esta Noche. Let me do the singing part. All right, here we go. Salí esta noche para olvidar el dolor que siento en mi corazón. Y de pronto allí te vi bailar. Y como magia celestial, tú me hiciste
Okay.
mejorar. There you
Yes,
go.
yes. I got to give you some claps.
Oh, I'm about to get into it. I'm about to get into
Okay, well,
it.
tell everyone, number one, where can they find it?
Right. Where they
Let's
can hear
find
the
the song
song.
first, and then we're going to come back to your contact information.
Right. So, okay. So since we can knock out two birds with one stone, you can get the song literally in every digital platform. You can download it on Apple Music. Remember, but when you're looking for it, every platform you look for it, make sure you type Adam, ADDAM, because that's my middle name, but it's all caps, ADDAM, and the song is Esta, ESTA, space, Noche, NOCHE. Oh, yeah. Once again, that is Noche, yeah. ESTA, space, NOCHE. Esta Noche. And also, I was going to say, the reason I say you have to put my name is because, unfortunately, there's a lot of Esta Noches out there. Ariana Grande has a song called Esta Noche. There's other Hispanic songs called Esta Noche. Obviously, mine's a bachata song, but there's different songs called Esta Noche, so you have to put my artist name because, again, if you don't find it, if you don't, you test type Esta Noche or just Adam, you're going to find Adam's Family because they have two D's in their name. So there's that. So you can find it on Apple Music. You can find it on YouTube, of course, where you can see the bulk of the results of the numbers, which, as far as I know, you can find it on multiple radio stations that are playing it. Spotify, whatever you use, Esta Noche is on there. Thanks, courtesy of
And
Distro Kid from
then
the
make
Edmonds
sure
Music
that you
Group.
tell them to go out and request it.
Yeah, if you guys do me a favor, any Latin club that you go to, anything that you do, we've been sending it to DJs like crazy. I have a wonderful DJ pool that's been playing my music over at with Steve Augustus, also known as DJ D Wiz. He's doing an excellent job, hustling the record. Also, shout out to Indamix Radio playing the record. But make sure you request it at your local Latin club or just in general parties and stuff like that. That love people that love to dance, which is one thing I will say, Candy. Latin music, comparatively to just because my next record is R&B, obviously catering to my R&B audience because I don't want to leave them hanging. Because like he's doing R&B and then he's jumping to Latin music. No, I did this R&B record that's going to be out on my birthday, May 7th. Yes, way sooner than you think. Just because it's not a conflict of interest because it is one's high energy, one's more just the typical ballad type of deal. If you heard the song Everything, it's basically the Spanish version, but polished to where it needed to be because it was rushed before. And I'm just putting it out there. Sometimes I was overzealous and I sometimes get overly excited, but I should have taken more time, which I did this time. So and that one's called Eres Todo, but don't worry about that yet. That'll be out. You will hear about it, Candy. You're going to get early copy when there is an official release, but I don't want to, it's not out yet. Sometimes I'll perform it out, but I don't want to do it too much because I want to keep people familiar, but not soon. But yes, you can find the song anywhere. As far as following me on social media, because I know you're going to ask, you can follow me, on Adam. Mostly I'm active on Instagram a whole lot. The main only platform I really use is this one to communicate with all the fans. I don't really use TikTok or anything, but if you're looking for me, it's Adam, ADD.AM _ official. Again, that's ADD.AM _ official. And if you're looking to book me or looking for features to me booked on and everything like that, you gotta make sure you contact my people at Edmonds Music. So if you know how to spell Babyface Edmonds, so it's Edmonds, so it's ED MONDS Music. And if you see me, it's gonna pop up, and the thing looks like a record, like a golden record. So yeah, it's where you can contact it. And I did want to shout it out on here because I might as well do it. So basically, my label, if Candy, I know you interview a lot of great artists, and my label is looking for a few great artists, maybe like two more. That because like I said, I forgot to mention, we are going on tour in the summer. We will be having dates announced probably sometime in May. So we're gonna obviously on top of the open mic circuit that I'm working, kind of just doing my own personal little tour until we go on tour. I should be having some dates with the label around May. and it will be basically a big old showcase. I don't know who they have in mind right now, because we're going to be cross promoting with other some artists that they might have in their up their sleeves, because Edmonds, I'm sure they got a gag full of artists that I don't even know about, but we always want new bodies, some new artists that would love to be showcased. They're looking for all genres, obviously, and I think that there's a lot of great talent that gets overlooked, and it's thanks to them, what the work they're doing with me and a lot of their artists. Because again, obviously Melvin is also a singer like his dad, also his brother Chris, who's also Melvin's other son, sings and raps. So, and they have some other artists that there, of course, I presented to them. But, if there's any artists that you interview that are independent, that you do interview, that are looking for a potential opportunity for management, I think Edmonds Music is the best place to go, because I personally feel that they have done a lot of greatness with me. So I think you might have some people. But those are all the things with me. So I'm
Well, I
glad that we
thank
took
you
the
so
time to
much,
do
Adam,
this.
for coming back on the Candy Show. But let me tell you something before we get out of here. I do want to say that I do see where you're improving at. And I want to make sure that you know that, because sometimes people don't want to give feedback because they don't know if they're going to be, a little bit criticism and things like that.
Right.
But you and I know I've talked to you before, and I just want to let you know I do see where you're improving, where you're listening to whatever advice is coming your way, and you're making sure that you take things step by step, and then you're still moving forward. You're addressing what needs to be addressed, but you're still improving. So listen, when you're out there, you're doing it by yourself, there's only so much that you can handle at one time. But at the end of the day, it's like I do
Right.
see where you're improving. So I want to just make sure you knew that.
Right. Yeah, and I want to tell you too, Candy, when I do these performances, and just based on our constant conversations, obviously, just like a comedian has to go there all the time. The biggest thing for me, which I even notice as I'm always getting better, I'm always watching other artists performing at the open mics, is that, are you just standing there? Are you walking around? Are you talking to the audience? You don't have to, like I said, you don't have to be dancing the whole time in order to be entertaining. But what you have to do is that, okay, so like what I noticed with me, which, every single time you hit the stage, you want to take your time. You know what I mean? Even if it's a high tempo song, you don't want to look like you're rushing it, which is why I have a rehearsal space. I practice that all the time at my house. So, and I pretend sometimes, and here's a funny thing, okay? Here's a fun thing for performers. If you have like a stuffed teddy bear, pretend it's a person, and you can really gauge that. Sometimes the only issue I personally have sometimes is because I always like to give everybody my attention. I always try to give everybody the attention, but I have to understand sometimes it's okay to just look straight instead of looking this way and this way, because I understand I want to gauge them. I do, because that's my intention. But sometimes on the camera, this is a part of the development, your eyes look like they're wandering because and it looks like you're scared, but you're not. It's just me personally. For anybody that watches my performances, sometimes that happens because I'm trying to be like, oh, I don't want to ignore them. I don't want to ignore them. But the way I can do that is you get up and you walk to the females or whatever, and on stage, and you get to them so you can give them direct attention. Because then this way you're not. If I just look straight, at least it looks better for the camera and doesn't look so strange. So that's the little parts, the little things. But I think that performing all the time too makes you not as stiff, because if you're rusty, that's for any performer, not even just the new guys, like even your established performers. If you're performing, and I'm sure, like, when New Edition hasn't performed in a while, you know what I mean? They get together with Leon, and they're probably really really rusty. They got to do a few rehearsals, obviously getting older. But if they go out there like it's been forever, let's say it's like 3 years, right, and they're not even performing, and they just go out there to perform, they're probably gonna look really really stiff, because they always want to make sure they're, New Edition has performances. And I'm potentially going to mention this too. I'm going to potentially see them in for the April show, their Legacy tour, because I've been told a lot of good things because they're doing that. But I'm saying they always want to make sure they're limber, so I want to
Oh,
make
that's
sure
right.
I'm,
That's right.
you know what I
Listen, I
mean?
have to do that too. I can sit there and take a break, but then I have to keep it going because otherwise I'll get rusty. I'll get rusty. Well,
Yeah.
Adam, I thank you so much for once again returning back to the Candy Show. Guys, I thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Candy Show. Please make sure, I'm going to say it again, make sure that you are subscribed to the YouTube page. That is capital C and the number 2. So that's Candy Productions 2 YouTube. Make sure that if you're not following this official Instagram page, please make sure that you are following it. Put your notifications on, like, share, comment, because we want to make sure that we get you guys engaged. And I want to hear, what do you have to say? Even if you're criticizing, that's fine. But we want to at least keep it, kind of positive, but yet not all the way crazy either. You know what I'm saying? We like to keep it right up in here. But guys, make sure that you are subscribed
Right.
to this Instagram page, Candy Talk Show.